A lot of cheap action cameras have a very cool feature which is called time-lapse. So if you are not already familiar, what time-lapse is a feature that will speed up your video. So there's a lot of these cheap action cameras, they have a time-lapse feature both for the photo feature and a time-lapse feature for the video feature. We're talking about, in this video, the time-lapse feature for videos. I've not used the one for photos, but this video will just be explaining how to use the time-lapse feature for videos and how to create a time-lapse video. So if you aren't already familiar, what's going to happen here is that the resulting file that you create when you have this feature enabled is everything will look sped up. Okay, so there's different settings that'll determine how fast everything is moving, or rather how fast your video is sped up. This is just one of the 12 action cameras that I have. This one is called the Jad Fezzi camera, the 4K version. It was like $38, I think, or $40, something like that, with a coupon. Many action cameras out there. If you go to Amazon and search for action camera, well, you will receive lots of results. That's because these cheap ones are very popular. To record some HD video, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars. Not this one in particular. The reason I'm actually going to show you this camera is that the only feature I like on this camera is the time-lapse feature when I have the setting to 4K. I don't really like the video feature and the photo feature, and it doesn't. So I'm actually choosing this camera on purpose because I'm going to show you a few samples recorded at the end of the video with the time-lapse feature with this camera. So what is the time-lapse? So time-lapse is, okay, so the best example is you're pointing the camera at the sky. You see the clouds if it's a cloudy day. Regularly, you're not really going to see the clouds moving very quickly at regular speed. So with the time-lapse feature, you will be able to choose to have the video sped up. We're going to go over that in a minute, and what's going to happen is the clouds that you have up here, if the video is sped up by 30 times, now suddenly it's going to look like they're moving very quickly, or at least much more quickly. It's sped up by 60 times, they're going to be moving even faster. So in your example with clouds, that's all it is. It'll speed up your video by 30 times, 15 times, by 60 times, depending on the settings available on your camera. Okay? So when I get to this feature, all interfaces are different. We're just going to talk about this particular camera, the Jad Fezzi camera. How to get to your time-lapse feature. You find the settings. Sorry, there's a little bit of a glare here. Okay, you find your settings. Once you have found your time-lapse video setting, you're going to click on it and see what options you have. Sometimes it'll say 0.5 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 second, 10 seconds, etc. So my understanding of this is that if your video is supposed to have 30 frames per second and you have it set to 1 second right here, your video will be sped up by 30 times. If it's 0.5 seconds right here, some cameras have a 0.5 seconds feature. If it says 0.5 seconds and your video is 30 frames per second, it'll be sped up by 15 times. 5 seconds, and your video will be 30 frames per second. I think it'll be sped up by 150 times. If it says 2 seconds and your video is 30 frames per second, it'll be sped up by 60 times. If your video is 60 frames per second and it says 1 second, your video will be sped up by, I think, 60 times. Okay, so that's really what it is. And but don't really listen to what I'm saying. The most fun thing to do really is to experiment. You can make some videos, and after each time you can check the video just to see how, maybe you want it to be faster, maybe you want it to be slower, maybe you want to adjust the position of the camera, adjust the angle. It's all about trial and error. So you can make lots of videos, maybe once every day after you charge your camera. Of course, the tedious part is you have to charge your camera each time. But it's not like you make one video and that's it. Just make a whole bunch of videos and look at the settings and just choose your favorite setting with respect to maybe how fast the video is sped up or the resolution. So that's really what it is. It's not about me telling you what setting to use. It's about you looking at the different options to speed up your video, how fast everything should, how many times the video should be sped up by, whether it's 30 times, 60 times, or 15 times, depending on what features you have, and what setting. Is it 4K? Is it 2.7K? Is it 1080p? Is it 720p? It's about what you prefer, but I'm just telling you that the best thing to do, from my experience, is to make lots of videos, time-lapse videos, and figure out what settings are best for you. So I'm going to tell you what settings are best for me on this camera. I have it set to 1 second. And for the resolution, I will have it set all the way to 4K at 30 frames per second. That's my favorite one. So time-lapse, 4K, 30 frames per second, 1 second. So it'll be sped up by 30 times if we have the video set to 30 frames per second. We shoot 30 frames per second, 1 second here. That be sped up by 30 times. And I'm going to go outside and make one right now to show you what that looks like. So once you've set your time-lapse setting, you've got it, time-lapse is on at 1 second, and in this case, 4K resolution. What you should do, which is very important to conserve battery life, is you want to go to your general settings and adjust the screensaver and have it so that the screen will time out after a few seconds. In this case, 30 seconds. If you have your screensaver off, this display will be on and it'll consume battery life. So the idea is you want your video to be as long as possible, to record as much as possible, and the only way to do that is to conserve battery life. You have to turn your screensaver on. It'll time out, in this case, after 30 seconds. That's what you should do, which is very important. Now, what you actually have to do is go and record your video. Sorry, I'm trying to exit. Now, see, and you'll sometimes see a little icon showing you that you have the time-lapse feature turned on, the resolution maybe, so we have 4K 30 frames per second, 1 second here, so it'll be sped up by 30 times. And all you have to do now is place it somewhere and then press the record button. And once you do that, don't move the camera at all. It should stay still wherever it is. Shouldn't be moving around. Do not move the camera. So see how the screen will time out after 30 seconds? That's important. We want to save battery life. Once you figure out where you want to put the camera, maybe you have the sky visible, maybe you have a street, so there's cars moving by, people walking by. Press the record button, press, and then don't move. Just let the time-lapse go. If you have it set to 30 frames per second, your video, and you have it set to 1 second, like we do here, then what's going to happen is your video will be sped up by 30 seconds. So a 1 minute video, a 30-minute video would be 1 minute, right, times 30. A 60-minute video would be 2 minutes long. 2 hours would be 4 minutes. That's all. So the video's not going to be very long. And so you've pressed your record button, you don't do anything. The screen will time out, and when you're done, all you do is click the button so that the screen comes back on, and then click the button again to stop recording. You want to make sure you stop the video, and then you can take your camera from wherever it is. That's all you have to do. And then you transfer the footage to your computer, charge your camera, and just see if you like the video. If you don't, just change some of the settings, maybe the resolution setting, how fast you want the video to be, and then just keep making the same videos. Just keep making some time lapses until you find what you think is best. Or if you don't like it, just maybe buy a different cheap camera. And that's the great thing about these cheap cameras. They're not very expensive. There's only one more thing I'm going to say about time-lapse videos, is that the underwater housing, which is usually included, it's not just really for underwater conditions or rainy conditions. It's also great because it has this attachment here which lets you stand up your camera. So this is I almost dropped it. This is actually very neat because you won't really see any decrease in the quality of the video if you have it in the housing. But you see this right here really actually is good to stabilize the camera, and you can also adjust this attachment right here. You can turn it so you can have the camera pointing up or pointing a little bit more down. This is actually great for time-lapse videos to have the camera in the underwater housing because it helps you stand the camera. Well, I mean, not very good example on the sofa, but it helps you stand the camera up and it gets you a little bit more height. Whereas if you take it out of the underwater housing, it's just right against the surface. But here you got a little bit of height and you can adjust it. Right, you can adjust it right here, pulling on this piece right here. So that's how to make a time-lapse video. If you weren't already familiar, I hope any of this video was helpful. I'll show you a couple of samples recorded with this particular camera, the Jad Fezzi 4K camera. at the 4K resolution here. I think it's alright. More expensive cameras might have more features, might have better quality, but I think it's a lot of fun, just especially if it's a nice cloudy day or if there's a sunset or a sunrise. And sometimes the videos can look really, really cool. It's a lot of fun. Of course, not fun, you just put your camera here and walk away, or just stand there next to your camera, but the resulting video file is usually pretty cool. So, thanks for watching this video. There's a couple of samples, sample time-lapse videos. The next section of this video, if you'd like to see. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.